The stars looked different today. Commander Lisa Hayes noticed it first. Tiny shifts in the usual patterns, visible only to someone who had spent as many hours staring into the void as she had. She leaned forward in her command chair aboard the ESS Defiant, Earth's newest and most advanced battlecruiser. "Magnify Sector 7, she ordered. The main screen zoomed in, revealing what looked like distortions in space. Heat ripples almost, but in the cold vacuum where such things shouldn't exist. "Analysis?" Lisa asked, keeping her voice calm. Lieutenant Paul Watson, a young officer with bright eyes and steady hands, worked his console with practiced efficiency. "Unknown energy signatures, Commander. Nothing in our database matches." "How many?" "At least 20 distinct sources. Large ones." Lisa tapped her communication panel. "Commander Hayes to Admiral Russell, sir, I think you need to see this." 10 minutes later, Admiral Gordon Russell stood beside her on the bridge, his weathered face grim as they watched the distortions grow and solidify. "First contact," he said quietly. After all these years, humanity had expanded through their solar system over the past decades. Mars colonies, mining operations in the asteroid belt, research stations on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. They had sent probes beyond, hoping to find other intelligent life. Now it seemed other intelligent life had found them. "They're huge," Tactical Officer Jack Daniels said, his voice hushed with awe as the ships fully materialized. The alien vessels were massive, at least 3 miles long, with smooth surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their design was sleek, geometrically perfect without the practical compromises and utilitarian angles of human ships. They moved with impossible precision, arranging themselves in a formation that reminded Lisa of a predator's teeth. "Are they responding to hails?" Russell asked. Communications specialist Karen Wright shook her head. "We've tried all frequencies and protocols, sir. Nothing. Keep trying. And get me Moon Base Alpha. I want to know if they're..." The bridge speakers crackled to life with a sound that made everyone wince. It wasn't quite static, more like language being forced through machinery never designed for it. "Attention primitive vessels. This is Executor Zixval of the Galactic Hegemony. Your system is now under our protection and control. Deactivate your weapons and propulsion systems. Resistance will result in immediate destruction." The bridge fell silent. Lisa exchanged glances with the Admiral. In his eyes she saw the same thought. This wasn't a greeting. It was a demand for surrender. "Open a channel," Russell ordered, straightening his uniform. When Karen nodded, he spoke with remarkable steadiness. "This is Admiral Gordon Russell of the Earth Defense Force. We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization, but we do not surrender our sovereignty. Perhaps we can arrange a meeting to discuss..." The alien voice cut him off. "Discussion is unnecessary. Your technology level has been assessed. Your military capability has been measured. You cannot resist. You will comply." The transmission ended abruptly. "Sir," Jack called out, "they're launching smaller craft, hundreds of them." "Alert all EDF vessels," Russell ordered. "Defensive positions. Captain Sullivan, get the Indomitable between those ships and Earth." Lisa watched the main screen as Captain Eric Sullivan's voice acknowledged the order. The ESS Indomitable, sister ship to the Defiant, moved to intercept. "Incoming transmission from Earth," Karen announced. "It's the President." President Olivia Martinez appeared on the screen, her expression grave but composed. "Admiral, what are we dealing with?" "First contact, Madam President. Not the friendly kind." "Can we fight them?" "Unknown. Their technology appears far advanced, beyond ours, but..." Russell's jaw tightened. "We'll defend Earth with everything we have." "Understood. I'm ordering full military alert worldwide. God be with you all." The President's image disappeared. Lisa turned to Jack. "What do we know about their weapons?" "Nothing yet. Their energy signatures don't match any..." He stopped mid-sentence, staring at his display. "Commander, I'm seeing something odd about their formation." Lisa moved to his station. "Show me." Jack pointed to several spots in the alien formation. "These gaps. They're perfectly consistent. In naval strategy, you'd never leave these vulnerabilities unless you're so confident. You don't think it matters, Lisa finished for him. The Indomitable is hailing the alien vessels, Karen reported. On screen, they watched as Captain Sullivan's ship approached the alien armada, broadcasting peace messages on all frequencies. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning, a thin beam of light, so bright it left afterimages, lanced out from one of the smaller alien craft. It struck the Indomitable with surgical precision. "Indomitable is hit," Jack shouted. "Their engines are offline, life support compromised. Move us in," Lisa ordered immediately. "Prepare rescue operations." "Commander," Russell said, his voice low. "Look." On the screen, the beam had left no visible damage to the Indomitable's hull, no scorch marks, no breach. Yet internal systems were failing across the ship. "They could have destroyed it completely," Russell said. "This was a demonstration," the alien voice returned. "Your resistance is noted. This was a minimal response. Comply or face escalation." In Miao, the next hour, chaos erupted across the solar system. Reports flooded in of alien ships appearing near Mars, the Jupiter stations, even the furthest outposts near Neptune. Earth's limited fleet scrambled to defensive positions, but they were hopelessly outnumbered and outgunned. At Moonbase Alpha, Dr. Samantha Powell stared at sensor readings with growing dread. As Earth's leading xenotechnology researcher, she recognized the implications. The energy signatures suggest their technology manipulates fundamental forces we're only beginning to understand, she told her team. Their ships aren't just centuries beyond ours. They operate on principles we haven't even theorized yet. Her husband, Colonel Frank Powell, coordinated ground defense preparations from the adjacent military section. "Sam, what are our options?" She shook her head. "Conventional warfare, none, but..." She paused, an idea forming. "They're using quantum field manipulation for their shields and weapons. There might be a flaw there. Something about their approach to physics seems overconfident." On the Defiant, Lisa and Admiral Russell watched as the alien armada spread through the system with frightening speed and coordination. Earth's outmatched fleet managed to save most of the Indomitable's crew, but every attempt to engage the aliens directly resulted in swift, precise counterattacks that disabled rather than destroyed. "They're toying with us," Jack said bitterly. Lisa studied the tactical display. "No, they're following a protocol. Their responses are measured, proportional, like they've done this 1,000 times before." "Because they probably have," Russell said. "We're not their first conquest." Lisa nodded slowly, an understanding forming. "And that might be their weakness. If they've conquered 1,000 worlds the same way, they don't expect anything different from us," Jack finished, catching her meaning. The alien flagship, a vessel twice the size of the others, moved into position above Earth. The voice of Executor Zixaval broadcast across all channels worldwide. "Your defenses are inadequate. Your resistance is futile. The Galactic Hegemony claims this system. You have 6 Earth hours to surrender all military authority or face consequences." In war rooms and command centers across Earth, humans face the most important decision in their history. Submit to an alien empire, or fight a seemingly hopeless battle against vastly superior technology. Lisa Hayes looked at the determined faces around her on the bridge of the Defiant. "We've never surrendered our home before," she said quietly. "We're not starting today." High Executor Zixaval stood on the command platform of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His tall, slender frame towered over the other officers. His skin had the metallic blue sheen of the highest caste of the hegemony, and the 6 digits on each hand moved with precise grace as he manipulated the ship's control field. "These humans are more stubborn than anticipated," he said, his voice a melodic series of tones that the ship's systems translated for the benefit of lower-ranked crew members. Subcommander Vorthal approached with caution. Unlike his superior, Vorthal's skin was a duller blue, marking him as a mere 10,000 rotations old compared to Zixval's 30,000. Executor, our analysis of their communications suggests they may attempt unorthodox resistance, Forthal said. Zixval made a dismissive gesture. They have crude nuclear weapons and primitive spacecraft. Our shields can withstand 1,000 times their combined firepower. Yes, Executor, but their psychological profiles indicate unusual adaptability and— Enough, Zixval interrupted. I have conquered 63 worlds. Their resistance will follow the standard pattern. Initial defiance, then recognition of futility, then submission. Vorthal bowed and retreated, but his concerns remained. Something about these humans bothered him. Their communications showed none of the fear or awe that usually preceded easy conquest. On Earth, the 6-hour deadline approached its final minutes. In a bunker beneath Denver, President Martinez addressed the emergency session of the United Nations via secure video link. We will not surrender, she said firmly. Every nation has agreed. We fight. On the screen, representatives from around the world nodded grimly. Humanity stood united as never before. At Moonbase Alpha, Dr. Samantha Powell worked frantically with her team. The base shook occasionally as alien scout ships passed overhead, scanning but not yet attacking. Look at this, she said, pointing to a complex pattern on her screen. Their shield modulations follow strict mathematical sequences. Too strict. Her assistant, Dr. Alan Gray, leaned closer. You're right. There's no randomization. It's like they've never needed to adapt their defenses. Samantha's eyes widened with sudden understanding. Because no one has ever challenged them successfully. Their technology is advanced, but it's stagnant, Alan finished. They haven't innovated because they haven't needed to. In the adjacent military wing, Colonel Frank Powell coordinated with Earth's scattered defense forces. If we can't match their firepower, we need to be smarter, he told his officers. Unconventional tactics, guerrilla strategies, hit and run. Major Stephanie Ross, his second-in-command, nodded. Like fighting a grizzly bear with a pocket knife, you don't go head-on. Frank's secure line beeped. It was his daughter Allison, a 25-year-old genius working at MIT's quantum physics lab. Dad, she said, her face tense with excitement. I've been analyzing the data from the alien shields. There's something weird about how they handle particle interactions. Explain it simply, Frank said. They seem to have no defenses against certain quantum states that we use in our experimental reactors. It's like they developed along a completely different technological path and never encountered this approach. Frank immediately connected her with Samantha. As the scientists exchanged rapid technical talk, he turned back to his military planning. Meanwhile, in a hidden facility in the Nevada desert, NASA engineer Ben Howard and Air Force physicist Dr. Nicole Grant worked on Project Achilles, a weapon system deemed too dangerous for conventional warfare. The containment field is holding, Nicole said, watching the swirling energy inside the test chamber. Ben adjusted several controls. If Allison Powell's theory is right, this might actually work against the alien shields. And if she's wrong, we might tear a hole in space-time, Nicole replied dryly. Ben shrugged. Better than surrendering. In space, the ESS Defiant maintained position near Mars. Commander Lisa Hayes studied the tactical displays showing the alien fleet's perfect formations. There's no creativity in their movements, she said to Jack Daniels. No adaptation. They move like they're following a script. Jack nodded. Because it's always worked before. Why change a winning strategy? Because no battle plan survives. Contact with the enemy, Lisa said. Especially if that enemy is human. The 6-hour deadline expired. Across Earth, people waited in tense silence. Some in bunkers, some in prayer, some simply holding loved ones close. Executor Zixval's message was broadcast globally. Your time has ended. Submit now or face the consequences of defiance. President Martinez's reply was brief. Humanity does not kneel. The alien response was immediate. Beams of energy stabbed down from the smaller ships surrounding Earth, striking military bases with surgical precision. Orbital defense platforms went dark. Communication satellites failed. But there were no mass casualties. No cities destroyed. The strikes were calculated to demonstrate power without triggering the use of nuclear weapons. In the Kuiper Belt, at the edges of the solar system, mining supervisor Kate Miller watched the distant flashes of battle from the observation dome of Outpost Horizon. The small mining colony had been forgotten in the chaos, its automated signals mistaken by the aliens for unmanned sensor platforms. "Look at these readings," she said to her chief engineer Pete Donovan. "The alien scanners are bouncing weird off our rhodium processing plant." Pete studied the data. "It's creating a blind spot. They can't see anything behind it." Kate's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "If common Earth minerals can confuse their scanners." On the Eternal Dominion, Sub-Commander Vorthal noticed anomalies in the battle reports. "Executor, several human vessels are not responding as predicted. They appear to be retreating toward their outer planets." "Let them flee," Zixval said. "Focus on securing their homeworld." "Yes, Executor." Vorthal hesitated. "There is another matter. Our sensors detect unusual energy patterns from several locations on the planet. Patterns that do not match known human technology. They are attempting to deceive us with false readings," Zixval said confidently. "It is the fourth stage of the standard resistance pattern. Continue as planned." In the skies above Earth, Captain Ryan Garcia of the ESS Valiant watched his ship's systems fail one by one as alien weapons found their mark. His vessel had been specifically targeted after attempting to protect a civilian space station. "Reactor going critical," his engineering officer reported. 2 minutes to core breach." Ryan made a quick decision. All hands to escape pods. As his crew evacuated, he programmed a final course into the navigation computer. "Sir, you need to evacuate too," his first officer pleaded. Ryan shook his head. "Someone has to make sure she hits her mark." He looked at the young officer. "Tell them the Valiant went down fighting." Minutes later, the damaged battlecruiser accelerated directly toward the nearest alien vessel. The hegemony ship easily avoided the crewed attack, its perfect maneuvers demonstrating superior technology and tactical systems. What the aliens failed to notice were the dozens of small objects that detached from the Valiant just before impact. Nuclear. Mines disguised as debris, their signatures masked by the radiation from the failing reactor. When they detonated, the explosion was small by hegemony standards, barely enough to disrupt the alien ship's outer shield layer. But it was enough to create confusion in their perfect formation. For the first time in the battle, the aliens had to improvise. And for the first time in thousands of years of conquest, the galactic hegemony faced an opponent who refused to follow their carefully calculated patterns of defeat. Alarms blared throughout the Eternal Dominion. Executor Zixval gripped the edge of his command platform as the ship's systems registered the unexpected explosion. "Report," he demanded. "A human vessel self-destructed near the unyielding Truth," an officer responded. "Shield integrity on the Truth is at 92%. "A futile gesture," Zixval said, relaxing slightly. "Executor," Sub-Commander Vorthal interrupted. "We're detecting multiple small energy signatures where the human ship exploded." Before Zixval could respond, a series of detonations erupted around the unyielding Truth. The perfectly choreographed hegemony formation broke as ships maneuvered to avoid the unexpected threat. "Nuclear devices," Vorthal explained, "disguised as debris." Zixval's eyes narrowed. "A primitive trick. Resume formation and continue the assault." But across the Earth defense network, humans had seen something incredible. Hegemony ships forced to react, to improvise, to break their perfect patterns. On the ESS Defiant, Commander Lisa Hayes watched the tactical display with growing excitement. "They're rattled," she said. "Captain Garcia's sacrifice showed us they can be surprised." Admiral Russell nodded grimly. "One ship lost for minimal damage to their fleet, not a sustainable exchange rate. But it proves they're not invincible," Lisa insisted. "And look, their reformed pattern has gaps it didn't have before." Jack Daniels pointed to several ships on the display. "Those 3 destroyers are directly engaging our forces near Jupiter. The hegemony is splitting their attention." Lisa turned to communications. Get me Dr. Powell at Moonbase Alpha. When Samantha Powell's face appeared on screen, Lisa could see the excitement in her eyes despite the poor connection. "Commander, we've made a breakthrough," Samantha said. "The aliens use a quantum communication system for instantaneous coordination across their fleet, but it has a vulnerability." "What kind of vulnerability?" "It can't properly account for Earth's unique magnetic field variations. My team is working on a way to exploit that." Lisa thanked her and turned to Admiral Russell. "Sir, I'd like permission to try something unconventional." Russell raised an eyebrow. "At this point, Commander, I'm open to anything." In Utah, Sheriff Joe Patterson had never expected to be fighting aliens. Yet here he was, leading 24 deputies and local hunters through the mountains where one of the hegemony's scout ships had landed. "Remember," he told his makeshift militia, "aim for the joints in their armor. The suits don't stop bullets at certain speeds. Too slow or too fast gets through." This discovery had been a lucky accident. Deputy Rick Barnes had fired his grandfather's antique revolver at an alien soldier out of desperation when his modern sidearm had no effect. To everyone's surprise, the old .45 round had penetrated the alien's personal shield. Dr. Nicole Grant had later explained it. Their shields are tuned to stop high-velocity projectiles and energy weapons. They never developed defenses against simple kinetic weapons below a certain velocity threshold. Now Joe and his people moved quietly through the forest. The alien patrol was just ahead, collecting samples and scanning the environment with their advanced equipment. "Just like hunting elk," Joe whispered. "Nice and easy." 20 seconds later, 6 alien soldiers lay dead or wounded, never having detected the humans with their primitive weapons. In orbit, Lieutenant Amy Diaz led a dangerous mission. She and her small team had retrofitted 3 mining ships with the rhodium shielding discovered by Kate Miller. The bulky, ungainly vessels were hardly military craft, but they had one crucial advantage. They were invisible to hegemony sensors. "Approaching target," Amy said quietly, though there was no need for silence in space. Her co-pilot, Sergeant Will Cooper, guided their ship toward the underside of a hegemony cruiser. "Magnetic clamps ready," Will said. Their plan was audacious to the point of insanity. Board an alien warship, capture critical technology, and if possible, take prisoners. The odds of success were minimal. The odds of survival even less. "For Earth," Amy said, as the clamps engaged with a dull thud that resonated through their ship. Cutting through the alien hull was surprisingly easy. The hegemony, never having faced boarding actions, had focused their defenses outward, not inward. Inside, the alien corridors were vast and eerily beautiful, with flowing geometric patterns that seemed to defy normal space. The team moved with practiced precision, following the schematics developed from long-range scans. They encountered resistance, of course. Alien guards with weapons that fired streams of energy so intense they left glowing trails in the air. 2 of Amy's team fell in the first exchange, but human adaptability proved its worth again. They quickly learned to use the ship's own architecture as cover, to time their movements between the aliens' coordinated firing patterns. "They fight like machines," Will observed after they secured a junction. "Predictable intervals, no creativity." Amy nodded. "Let's use that." They reached the secondary command center with 4 team members remaining. Inside, 3 alien officers worked at control fields of pure energy. The humans' entrance startled them. Clearly, the concept of enemies penetrating this far into a hegemony vessel was unprecedented. In the confusion, Amy's team secured the room with minimal resistance. 1 alien officer was killed, another wounded. The third, bearing insignia of higher rank, was captured intact. "Package secured," Amy reported, through their makeshift communication system. Beginning Phase 2. Will and another team member began downloading alien technical data, while Amy questioned the captured officer using translation software, hastily adapted from the alien's own communication systems. "Your resistance is meaningless," the alien said, its speech rendered in flat, emotionless English. "The hegemony spans 1,000 worlds. Your defeat is inevitable." "Then why are your ships retreating from Jupiter?" Amy asked. The alien's 6-fingered hands twitched in what might have been surprise. On Earth, in the remains of what had been Geneva, Colonel Frank Powell led a small force of special operations soldiers toward the hegemony's forward command post. The aliens had established a base in the ruins, using it to coordinate their ground operations. "Satellite link established," his communications officer whispered. "Your daughter is ready." Frank nodded and gave the signal to advance. They needed to get within 100 meters of the alien facility for Allison's plan to work. The team moved, silently through rubble that had once been one of humanity's great cities. Alien patrols moved with mathematical precision, their routes perfectly timed and spaced. This made them predictable, and vulnerability to a species that had perfected the art of asymmetric warfare over centuries of fighting among themselves. Frank's team reached the target position without detection. He activated the device Allison had designed, a small, unassuming box that began to pulse with subtle energy. In her lab at MIT, Allison Powell initiated the program. "Uploading virus now," she said to her team. "If their quantum communication system works the way we think it does, this should cascade through their entire network." The effect wasn't immediately apparent. No explosions, no disabled ships falling from the sky. But across Earth and the solar system, hegemony communications began to experience microsecond delays. Their perfectly synchronized operations developed tiny flaws, small enough that the aliens didn't immediately notice but growing larger by the minute. In space, Commander Lisa Hayes put her unprecedented plan into action. She had reorganized the remaining Earth fleet into a formation completely unknown to military science, based not on conventional tactics, but on American football plays. "Defiant to all ships," she transmitted. "Execute formation quarterback blitz. On my mark." The human vessels moved in patterns that made no tactical sense according to conventional warfare doctrine. The hegemony ships, programmed to recognize and counter standard military formations, found their predictive algorithms failing. For precious minutes, the Earth fleet achieved the impossible: tactical superiority against a vastly more powerful enemy. And in those minutes, humanity seized its first real chance at survival. General Diana Wright stood in the remains of the Pentagon's Central Command Room. As the last surviving member of Earth's Joint Chiefs, leadership had fallen to her after the hegemony's precise strikes against military command centers worldwide. 3 days into the invasion, she had finally assembled enough of a staff to implement a coordinated global defense. "Operation Thunderbolt is a go," she announced to the grim-faced officers around her. "All units acknowledge and proceed." Across what remained of Earth's communication networks, military leaders confirmed receipt of her orders. Operation Thunderbolt wasn't a single strike, but a symphony of coordinated actions designed to exploit every weakness humans had discovered in the hegemony's seemingly perfect war machine. On her screen, Diana watched the tactical display as Earth's remaining forces began to move. Not in retreat, not in desperation, but with purpose. In a hidden facility beneath the Appalachian Mountains, Professor Henry Blake worked with a team of engineers on the most ambitious technological leap in human history. Before him stood the twisted remains of a hegemony scout ship, recovered at great cost from a crash site in Canada. "The propulsion system is intact," he told his exhausted team. "And I think we've finally cracked the principles behind it." For 48 hours straight, they had worked to reverse engineer the alien technology. What would have taken years under normal circumstances was being attempted in days, fueled by desperation and the knowledge that humanity's survival hung in the balance. "The equations don't make sense," complained Dr. Luis Garcia, a physicist, who had hiked 60 miles through hegemony patrols to reach the facility. "They do if you stop thinking like a human," Henry replied. He pointed to his calculations. "Their math is based on a different conceptual framework, but the physics is universal." In the facility's hangar, technicians were already modifying Earth's remaining spacecraft with components built according to Henry's initial designs. The retrofits wouldn't match hegemony technology, but they might close the gap enough to matter. High above Earth, the Eternal Dominion shuddered slightly as another system malfunction rippled through its network. Executor Zixval, for the first time in his 3-century career, felt an unfamiliar sensation. Doubt. The human virus continues to spread through our systems, reported an engineer. Attempts to isolate and remove it have failed. How is this possible? Zixval demanded. Their technology is primitive. Sub-Commander Vorthal approached cautiously. Executor, we have completed the analysis of their virus. It operates on principles our systems are not designed to counter. Explain. It appears to be adaptive. It changes as we attempt to neutralize it. Our security protocols are designed to recognize and eliminate known threats. But it evolves, Zixval said, the concept strange on his tongue. Yes, Executor. Like their tactics. Zixval turned to the strategic display. The human resistance had intensified in the past 12 hours. Their ships no longer followed recognizable patterns. Their ground forces appeared and disappeared using the planet's geography in ways the hegemony's battle computers struggled to predict. Begin planetary bombardment, he ordered. Destroy their major population centers. Fear will restore order to this conflict. But when the hegemony ships positioned themselves for the attack, something unexpected happened. Their targeting systems began to malfunction near Earth's magnetic poles. The humans are creating artificial magnetic field distortions, an officer reported, similar to their planet's natural variations but intensified. Zixval felt his composure slipping. Compensate and continue the attack. In the skies above Earth, Commander Lisa Hayes watched the alien fleet's movements from the ESS Defiant. Her ship had taken heavy damage but remained operational, thanks to inspired work by her engineering team. They're trying to establish bombardment positions, Tactical Officer Jack Daniels reported, but our magnetic disruptors are throwing off their targeting. Good, Lisa said. Signal the fleet. Implement formation jazz improvisation. Jack looked up in surprise. Sir? We just switched to football plays an hour ago. And they've already started to adapt, Lisa explained. So we changed the underlying logic again. This time we're using jazz music structures. The human fleet began to move in fluid, seemingly random patterns based on the improvisational structure of jazz music. Ships accelerated and decelerated unpredictably, changing direction with no apparent tactical purpose. The hegemony ships, attempting to predict and counter these movements, found their battle computers struggling with the lack of recognizable patterns. At a research facility in Sweden, Dr. Nicole Grant and engineer Ben Howard completed the final adjustments to Project Achilles. What had begun as an experimental defensive system had been transformed into something new. The quantum field is stable, Nicole reported, checking the readings one last time. Ben nodded, his face drawn with fatigue. Activating now. A low hum filled the facility as the device powered up. There was no visible effect, no dramatic energy, discharge, just a subtle distortion in the air above the device like heat waves on a summer road. But in orbit, hegemony sensors registered a strange phenomenon spreading across Earth's surface. A quantum field unlike anything in their records was forming, interfering with their targeting systems while allowing human weapons to fire through the disruption without impediment. Lieutenant Amy Diaz, her mission aboard the hegemony cruiser, complete, prepared her team for extraction. They had downloaded critical technical data and secured their alien prisoner. Now they needed to escape. The shuttle is ready, Will Cooper reported. But we have a problem. They've detected our ship and established a security perimeter. Amy considered their options. We don't need to reach our ship, we just need to reach their shuttle bay. Will's eyes widened. You want to steal one of their shuttles? Unless you have a better idea? Their captured officer, who had remained silent for hours, suddenly spoke. You will fail. No human can operate hegemony technology. Amy smiled. We downloaded your operating manuals along with everything else. And unlike you, we're good at adapting to new technology. The alien's expression was unreadable, but Amy thought she detected something new there. Not fear, exactly, but something close to it. Uncertainty. In Geneva, Colonel Frank Powell's team had successfully disrupted the alien command post with Allison's virus. Now they faced the dangerous task of extraction through enemy-controlled territory. "Movement ahead," whispered Lieutenant Carol Baker, the team's scout. Frank signaled the team to take cover as a hegemony patrol approached. 6 alien soldiers moved with their characteristic precision, scanning the rubble with advanced sensors. Frank waited until they passed, then led his team in the opposite direction. They had learned that hegemony troops relied heavily on their technology and rarely employed basic tactics like doubling back or setting ambushes. "Colonel," Carol called softly, pointing toward the sky. Above them, the evening clouds were lit by strange, shifting patterns of light. The alien fleet was engaging Earth's remaining defenses in the biggest battle yet. But something was different. The hegemony ships were no longer moving with perfect coordination. Their responses seemed delayed, their formations less precise. "Allison's virus is working," Frank said, allowing himself a moment of hope. Aboard the ESS Defiant, Lisa Hayes received an urgent transmission from General Wright. "Commander, Professor Blake has completed the retrofits. 12 of our ships now have partial hegemony propulsion capability." Lisa felt a surge of excitement. "Where are they?" "Approaching your position now. They'll join your fleet in 5 minutes." Lisa turned to Jack. "Update formation Jazz Solo. Incorporate the new vessels as featured instruments." Jack worked quickly at his console, then looked up with a rare smile. "Formation updated, Commander. The band is ready to play." In the vastness of space, Executor Zixaval watched with growing alarm as 12 human ships suddenly accelerated to speeds previously impossible for Earth vessels. They moved with incredible agility, dancing between hegemony formations, disrupting carefully planned maneuvers. And behind them came the rest of the human fleet, moving in patterns that defied prediction, targeting weak points that shouldn't have been detectable to primitive sensors. For the first time in the history of the galactic hegemony, a conquest was not proceeding according to plan. High Executor Zixaval stared at the tactical display with disbelief. 3 of his dreadnoughts were now disabled or destroyed. Dozens of smaller vessels had been damaged. The carefully orchestrated invasion was falling apart around him. "This is impossible," he said, his melodic voice for once lacking its usual confidence. "The humans continue to adapt faster than our systems can predict," Sub-Commander Vorthal reported. "Their virus has spread to 80% of our fleet. Communications are degrading." Zixaval felt something he had not experienced in his 3 centuries of military service, the bitter taste of potential defeat. His 6 fingers moved across the control field, sending new orders to the fleet. They would regroup, establish a defensive perimeter, and request reinforcements from the nearest hegemony outpost. "Executor," an officer called out with unusual urgency, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council." Zixaval tensed. The Council rarely involved themselves in standard conquest operations. He gestured for the transmission to be put through. The imposing figure of Supreme Counselor Rilnar appeared on the screen, her ancient face showing the metallic purple sheen that marked the highest caste of hegemony leadership. "Executor Zixaval," she said without preamble, "our analysis of your battle data is most concerning. The Earth situation has been elevated to Threat Category 1. Zixaval struggled to maintain his composure. Threat Category 1 was reserved for species that posed existential dangers to the hegemony itself. In 50,000 years of expansion, only 2 other species had ever received such a designation. "Supreme Counselor, with additional forces I can still complete the conquest," he insisted. "No," Rilnar's response was immediate and final. "You will withdraw all forces from the human system immediately." "Withdraw? But they are still inferior. Their technology is not the concern," Rilnar interrupted. "Their adaptability is unprecedented. Our predictive models indicate that continued engagement will result in catastrophic knowledge transfer. They are learning too, quickly from exposure to our systems." Zixaval wanted to argue but knew it would be futile. "As you command, Supreme Counselor." The transmission ended. Zixaval stood in silence for a moment, processing the implications. In his entire career, no conquest had ever been abandoned. The hegemony had never retreated. "Signal the fleet," he finally ordered. "All ships to disengage and prepare for immediate withdrawal." Meanwhile, Dr. Nicole Grant and Ben Howard were completing the transformation of Project Achilles. What had begun as a defensive quantum shield was now being modified into an offensive weapon. "If our calculations are correct," Nicole explained, to General Wright via a secure connection, "this will create quantum disruptions that will render their faster-than-light drives dangerously unstable." "How long until it's ready?" the general asked. Ben checked their progress. 10 minutes, maybe less." "Make it 5, Wright replied. "Our forces report the hegemony ships are changing formation. Something's happening up there." "In orbit, Commander." Lisa Hayes watched with suspicion as the alien fleet began to consolidate its position, pulling back from direct engagement with Earth forces. "They're retreating," Jack Daniels said, disbelief evident in his voice. "No," Lisa replied. "The hegemony doesn't retreat. They're regrouping for a final strike." She opened a channel to all Earth vessels. "This is Commander Hayes. All ships maintain offensive posture. This is not over." But across the solar system, hegemony forces were indeed pulling back from human outposts and colonies. The mining facility in the Kuiper Belt reported alien ships accelerating away. The Mars Defense Force confirmed hegemony withdrawal from the Red Planet's orbit. On the Eternal Dominion, Zixval gave his final orders with barely contained frustration. All ground forces to evacuate immediately. Abandon equipment if necessary. Vorthal approached cautiously. "Executor, some of our ground forces are reporting resistance to extraction. The humans are pursuing them." In the ruins of Geneva, Colonel Frank Powell received unexpected news from his scout. "Sir, the aliens are bugging out, loading up in their shuttles and taking off." Frank didn't trust the sudden development. "Could be a trap. Maintain position and keep eyes on them." Similar reports came in from around the globe. Sheriff Joe Patterson watched from the Utah mountains as alien craft hurriedly lifted off, leaving equipment behind in their haste. Lieutenant Amy Diaz, having successfully commandeered a hegemony shuttle with her team, intercepted alien communications as they fled the system. "They're running scared," Will Cooper said as he struggled with the unfamiliar controls of the alien craft. Amy nodded, studying the captured officer who sat silently watching the humans operate his people's technology. "Question is, why now? We're hurting them, but they still outgun us." Their prisoner spoke unexpectedly. "The Council has designated your species Threat Category 1. Only twice before has this occurred." "What happened to those other species?" Amy asked. "They no longer exist," the alien replied simply. At MIT, Allison Powell monitored the cascading effect of her virus through the hegemony network. Her father's voice came through her secure line. "The aliens are retreating, Ellie. Whatever you did, it worked." Allison shook her head, though her father couldn't see it. "My virus is effective but not devastating. They could work around it given time. Something else is happening." In Nevada, Dr. Nicole Grant initiated the final sequence of Project Achilles. The device hummed to life, projecting quantum disruptions specifically calibrated to the frequency of hegemony drive systems. Throughout the solar system, alien ships suddenly found their faster-than-light capabilities compromised. Not disabled, but unstable enough to make immediate escape difficult. "It's working," Ben Howard confirmed, watching the readings. "They can still leave, but it'll be slower than they planned." On the ESS Defiant, Lisa Hayes received an urgent transmission from President Martinez. "Commander, all reports confirm hegemony forces are withdrawing. I'm authorizing Operation Last Word." Lisa understood immediately. "Acknowledged, Madam President." She turned to her crew. "All ships to execute formation final statement. Let's make sure they remember why they're leaving." Earth's fleet, now moving with newfound confidence and enhanced capabilities, positioned themselves to harass the retreating alien armada, not to prevent their escape, but to ensure it happened under human terms. The hegemony ships, their perfect coordination shattered by the human virus, their drive systems compromised by Project Achilles, found themselves in an unthinkable position, retreating under fire from a species they had dismissed as primitive just days earlier. From the command deck of the Eternal Dominion, Zixval watched his once perfect fleet limp away from the human system in disarray. Some ships had taken damage to their main drives and were being towed by larger vessels. Others struggled with cascading system failures caused by the human virus. "We will remember this defeat," he promised quietly. Across Earth, humans emerged from bunkers and shelters to watch the alien ships receding into the sky. In military bases and command centers, there was no wild celebration, only the grim satisfaction of survivors who know they've won a reprieve, not a final victory. On the observation deck of the newly rebuilt Moonbase Alpha, Captain Eric Sullivan stood beside Commander Lisa Hayes watching the last hegemony vessels disappear from visual range. "They'll be back," he said quietly. "And next time they won't underestimate us." Lisa nodded. "And we'll be ready. We have their technology, their data, even a few of their people. By the time they return, we won't be the primitive species they found." As the final alien ship vanished from their sensors, a new chapter in human history began. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, and the universe had learned that humanity was not to be trifled with. In the vast darkness of space, word began to spread among the 1,000 conquered worlds of the hegemony. For the first time in 50,000 years, the invincible empire had retreated. A small blue planet called Earth had done the impossible, and across the galaxy, subjugated species looked to the stars with something they had long forgotten: hope.